Dragon Blood Sack Mead. What's next? So, we started a Dragon's Blood Sack Mead, and it's been about 2 weeks, so I think it's time we start moving it to the next step. Now, you'll see there's still a little bit of fermentation happening. Well, I should correct that. You'll see there's still some bubbles coming through the airlock. I think that's more from me agitating it. It really has slowed down, and I just want to see where it's at right now. I'm going to remove the lid. Take a smell. It definitely smells like fermentation. So the first thing I want to do today is take a reading, and I want to see where it's at. I'm guessing it's going to be done or just about done because it really has slowed down. But why don't we find out? So we're at a 1.000, which is surprising to me. I thought this was going to be 0.99 or 0.98 at this point, because with this much ethanol in the brew, it has the potential to go lower than 1.000, which means, yeah, it might still be working a little bit. However, that leads me to the next issue. Still a lot of berries on top of here, and they've given this brew all they're going to give. The longer we keep them in here, the more we're kind of tempting fate to have mold grow or something we don't want grow on these berries. So I want to remove the berries. And at the bottom, you see this really fine lees cake. They've given off a lot. So much so that I think the volume of liquid in here could easily fit in one of these. It's a 1 gallon wide mouth fermenter. And I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to do. Now, I can leave it for another few days, see if it pushes to that 0.99 I'm hoping for, but I think it's going to get there. And the fact that it's a 1.000 gives me a relatively clean slate to add a little bit more honey. Which, remember, this is a sack mead, so the higher we can get it ABV-wise, the better. That's what I'm looking at right now. Alright, so I'm going to take my smaller fermenter, place it under my larger fermenter. I'm basically going to move the volume of liquid from here to here using an auto siphon. Today I'm going to leave the cap on, although it doesn't really matter. There's still a whole lot of sediment in here, and I'm not going to worry about it. Get it about halfway through, give it a few large pumps, and now we're just going to let it go. Yeah, it's really soupy still. Like, there's a whole bunch of berry pulp and everything. It still has some clearing out to do. So I think even in secondary, it's still going to push fermentation. Not by much. The tolerance is 18%, and right now I'm going to put what our current ABV is right up here. And if you're wondering how I got that, is I'm going to take the original gravity, I'm going to minus it by the final gravity, and then I'm going to times it by 132, which is going to give me my ABV at the moment. However, we're going to take another reading today and push it just a little bit further, but more on that after this is done racking. So this went much higher than I was expecting, but that's not so bad. When you're in secondary fermentation, you want it to have as little headroom as possible. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to add about half a pound of honey to this. Now, this is still very much an active fermentation. And if those yeast want, they can consume any other sugars we put in. So we're step feeding it a little, but more importantly, I'm only adding half a pound, which, if it doesn't ferment any further, it's going to leave this with a honey flavor that's not sickeningly sweet for me. Now, if you think that sounds like too much honey for you, you can go a little bit lighter and step feed it like that. My guess is it's going to do a little bit more fermenting and leave me with a slight honey characteristic. If I want to make it sweeter, I'll make it sweeter in a couple weeks when I do some more tests on it. However, just adding some honey. Now, before you start saying anything like, that is not enough headroom in this fermenter, if this was a brand new fermentation, you'd be absolutely correct. However, I'm not starting a brand new fermentation today. I'm actually just continuing an already going one, which means it's not going to bubble over. But stirring it is going to be a little scary. And while we're stirring it, I think I'm going to go ahead and add the pectin enzyme now. I'm adding another half teaspoon. And that's strictly, at this point, for clarification. That's going to help any of these berry solids and other stuff in here, that murkiness it has. It's basically going to start dropping it as suspension sooner rather than later, which is something that I wanted to do. So I'm not sure if you can tell from your angle, but there's a whole lot of foam coming up. That's all the gases from the brew. So this is still a little on the active side. I think it's going to eat that honey right on up. Why don't we take a quick reading now and see how much higher the gravity is. Essentially what I'm going to do is take the old reading and the new reading and combine them at the end. So if I have this much ABV already, plus this much ABV from the new one, it's going to give me a good guesstimation of where we're at. It might be a little off, but not by much. Not enough to count. All right, so we are at a 1.020. Awesome. I kind of want to taste it, but I also kind of don't want to drink a full yeast colony, so it's not bad for you. It won't really hurt you. Might give you an upset stomach. That's about the worst. Now, the last thing I'm going to add for today is a little bit of charred French oak. This one is a medium toast. Let's have a couple pieces. I like to think of a sacked meat as something that's aged in barrels for a while. It's going to have that nice charred, barrel-y flavor to it. And this is my way of imitating that. It's not going to be exactly the same, but it's going to give you some kind of similar result. All right, lastly, I'm going to put a lid back on and put an airlock carefully. You don't want the airlock to touch the liquid. It kind of defeats the purpose. So I'm not going to put it in as far as I normally would. However, I recommend an airlock at this point still. I added more honey to this. It's possibly going to ferment a little bit more, and even if not, it's still off-gassing. And you want those gases to be able to escape. You want these flavors to start to mellow. You want this brew to continue doing what it's doing. And a solid lid on this brew at this point is a very bad idea. You're kind of just asking for trouble. So now what I'm going to do is leave a few notes on this fermenter so that I know what I did today, plus what I had already done, to help future me know what step we are in this brew. So on 12/20, we were at a 1.135. Today, which is 1.3, we were at a 1.000. Next to it, I'm going to put the actual ABV. And then I'm going to leave another note that at 1.3, I added honey and brought it to a 1.020. Without a hydrometer, this would be very difficult to measure at this point. So if you're not using one, for this brew specifically, you might want to consider it. Also going to put the name of the brew. And that's as detailed as you need to make a label. Now, I keep notes with all my recipes and all my adjuncts on a separate document because I literally just use painter's tape. It goes on the fermenter real easily, gets taken off the fermenter real easily. I don't need a whole lot of information there, but I need some information there readily available. But I do keep much more detailed notes, and if you watch these videos, you get all those same detailed notes, so I don't have to go as complex. But what's going to happen next? Well, I'm going to let this sit for another week or two. How long exactly? I don't really know yet. It's really going to depend on what the brew looks like, what it does. If it looks like it's actively fermenting, I'm not going to touch it. If it looks like it isn't doing anything and it's starting to clear out, I might take a reading sooner. 2 weeks is about as much as I want to push it because there is oak in here now. And I don't want to overly oak this. I want to get it to a nice level where it tastes like an oaked mead would taste. So that was my theory behind that. If you want to see the continuation of this or watch the beginning of it, please check out these videos right up here. They're a great source of information and hopefully entertainment. If you like what you've seen today, please remember to hit that like button. It really helps me out. And I put a playlist right up here so you can check out other videos where I've made other meads. But for now, guys, that's really all I have. I'm Phil. This is Phil with Facts. And until next time, cheers.